Hi, Bill here. I'd like to talk about opening traps that don't involve the king. So sometimes you get traps based on the long diagonal. The diagonal's right through the centre of the board, particularly as at the start of the game the rooks are undefended. So here, white moves the pawn forward and both knights are attacked. Unless this square is defended by another piece, in which case black can move here and block, or if this square was defended, the knight could block. White's going to gain material, so all three of these pieces are vulnerable. So in this situation we don't need the rook in the corner. The pawn moves forward, so this pawn means that knight takes pawn will lose a piece. So both these knights are under attack, so black must lose material. So in this case, again we've got the rook in the corner, so we've got two weak pieces here. The knight moves. This is attacked twice. At most, black can only defend it once in one move. And black has nothing better than knight takes knight, losing the exchange. So this is a little bit different. We'll see what happens. So the knight moves to d4 this time. And that also gains material. Okay, now we've got a situation where knight attacks knight, bishop defends knight. Knight attacks pawn, knight attacks knight. But if this knight moves, a discovered attack is opened up with this bishop. So watch what happens. So knight takes the pawn. Now, if knight takes the knight, white regains his piece. So if we back up, if the knight took here instead, black would lose his knight. Okay, now I've got bishop lined up on the long diagonal, lined up on the undefended bishop and the rook. White queen attacks the h-pawn defended by the king. So white has a sneaky move. Knight moves up, threatening mate in one. So black takes it with the queen, which is the good way to beat the threat. Bishop takes a bishop. So it's an exchange, a knight for a bishop. However, the rook is trapped in the corner, and after the knight moves, white will win the exchange. Okay, now we've got bishop lined up on an undefended bishop and an undefended rook. So what white wants to do is unblock by moving this pawn somehow with check. So it starts off with a knight sacrifice, which is also a fork. King takes a knight. Now we've got pawn takes pawn, check, discovered attack. And after king takes the pawn, the bishop moves in and the rook is trapped. Now, this rook's in the corner, the queen and rook are lined up, this pawn's missing, so white moves the knight. Now black is in trouble, even though black's got a move to defend. White is threatening a skewer, but even if the queen moves out of trouble, the bishop moves in and black cannot save the rook. He can move the knight, but he will lose the exchange. Bishop moves in, forking two knights. The knights are 4 moves away from each other, so there's no way one knight can move and defend the other. Okay, so now we've got black has a loose bishop. So what we do is we swap off the knight first. Now the queen moves in, forking the bishop and the rook. So again, the loose knights get forked. Queen goes to c2. It could have also gone to d5. Just a simple pawn fork with a pawn, forking bishop and knight. Now this is interesting. White creates a pawn fork by gaining a tempo with a pawn attack. So first of all, he launches the attack by attacking the white squared bishop. When the bishop moves away to wherever, the pawn moves forward and forks the other two minor pieces. Oh, okay, so looks like black might have just castled, whereas the knight moves in and forks the queen and rook. So the queen's undefended. So in this case, the rook skewers the queen and the bishop. And it turns out that the queen cannot move and defend the bishop. If the queen had been on the same colour as the bishop, say been on c4, there'd be more possibilities to defend the bishop. Or if it's on c6, the closer the bishop it would have been, the more potential squares it would have had. So the one square it might have been able to defend the bishop is h3, but that is covered by the pawn. So the black bishop is in trouble. Okay, so what in this particular position, bishop g4 might get out of it, but the basic theme is the skewer of the rook against the bishop. So here, undefended bishop lined up with the rook. Chop off the pawn, and it turns out the pawn is now pinned to the bishop. Now this bishop gets in the way of this queen coming out to defend the soft f7 square, so white moves his queen up, and the square cannot be defended. The pawn moves, the queen moves in mate. So that's the end of the section. So that was just some more opening traps, which didn't involve checks. So thank you for watching.